Do you always spark when you get
Still,
shot?
please. Thanks.
Molly's just popped out. She'll be back in a minute.
I'll go and stand by the door, so.
Thank you. Yes.
Put it on there.
I'll take it with you. Got it?
Yeah. I'll wait for Lolly then.
Hi everybody.
Hello.
My name's Almus Brown and thanks for having me here today. I'm aged 36. I'm originally from Hackney but I live in Tottenham now. And I'm a single mother of 4. I just come here today, boxed by Faye, because I was in her unit. But before I got to Faye's unit, I had a little journey of my own. I was a drug addict for a long time, but I put myself through rehab. I had lost 3 of my kids through my addiction, which my mum had them at that time. I was 30, had nobody, so I put my through treatment. I completed it for the first time, and I came out. I put myself through college, and I started to look for work. I went through the 12 steps. I started going to meetings and making sure I keep myself safe. But at the same time, I was still under social services with my other kids. I had supervised contact, and then in that time, I got pregnant with my 4th. I was a bit worried when I got pregnant because of what happened with my 3 kids. So I was in 2 minds, but I looked at all the pros and cons, and this time I had a lot of pros than cons. So I kept her, she's a her. And that's how I ended up at Faye's unit. So yeah, her name's Almus Brown as well. She's going to be 4 in June. She's my guardian angel, I call her, because that was the first time in my life that I saw that I had a bit of hope. I went through a lot to keep her because of my past and my history. You could say I wasn't that trustworthy, but I still kept it going, and I believe that this was my time. I was going to keep at least 1 child in my care. So I got to Faye's, and when I got to Faye's unit, well, I first met Faye at the hospital because I came to hers a couple of days after I had Almus. I wasn't too well because I had cesarean. So we was in a meeting and I met Faye. So when I first met Faye, I looked at her and I thought to myself, okay, she looks different from the rest of them. Like the guardian, all of them, she just looked different. She looked more down to earth, if I'm going to be honest, compared to the other professionals that were in the room. So I thought, okay, this might be good. So we had our meeting, and then that was it. We was off, got the baby, and Faye drove us back to the unit. I got to the unit and I saw the unit and I thought, wow, feels like home. It was really nice. She had all these colourful pictures in the front room, on the wall. It was very friendly. It felt homely for me, because to be honest, I didn't know what to expect when they said they were going to put me in a residential mother-baby unit. To be honest, I just was expecting it to be more formal, more stricter, more like army regiment, like being in, everything just, but it wasn't. It was like being at home at my mum's. So she showed me my room, and I unpacked, I dealt with the baby, but then I ended up in hospital for a week, so I had to, because I had high blood pressure. So I wasn't at a unit for a week, kept the baby with the hospital with me, came back, and that's when we started our assessment. But one thing I do remember is that I didn't feel judged. I felt very welcomed, especially from Faye, and the rest of her staff was, okay. I didn't really have that much really negative to say when I first got there. everyone treated me well, went through the assessment. Yeah, and it was good. I don't know what else to say. Like, I'll just answer questions now. Sorry, I'm getting a bit tongue-tied now.
Can you tell us about some of the ways they engage with you, some of the ways they help to teach you certain things which helped you to pass this assessment?
Oh yeah, because I had a lot of history in my past that I hadn't dealt with. I only dealt some of them in rehab. I didn't deal with all of them. And one thing I did do was I mentioned it to Faye, and she got me a counsellor. And I thought that was good as well, because, like I said, I've been in a lot of organisations, and one thing I have noticed with other organisations is that they're not quick to put something in place for you to deal with that underground issues. And people will say your past is your past, but sometimes your past is not your past, and your past can affect the person who you are. And my past did. It made me a drug addict. It made me where I couldn't deal emotionally with life, everyday life. So that was one thing she did do for me. She got me in a counsellor, and it wasn't where the counsellor was there to report back. She was there for me and how I felt, how to deal with my emotions about my past, to deal with my emotions around how I felt with my kids, everything. So yeah, I thought that was really good, and that was putting my needs first, if you would like, so that I could then put my own baby's needs first. Yeah, so that was one of the things that they did. Sorry, I'm thinking. And I went to baby groups. They put that in place for me. I went every day with the baby. At first it was supervised when I first got there, but as time went on and they saw how I was doing well and the trust was there, I gained their trust, then I went unsupervised. And that's another thing as well in a development in a place like this. For someone like me, I ain't got a good history, and I've always been supervised, whether it's been in a mental hospital, in a rehab. I'm always supervised. I'm always writing down, oh my God, what's she doing, whatever. And that's always made me feel like I can't be me. I can't trust anyone, because I just feel that they're there to just see when I screw up. The minute I screw up, that's it, they're on me. But then it wasn't like that at Phase. At Phase, yeah, at first I understood. At first I had to be supervised because I was a high risk. But as I won their trust over, and they saw my development in my parenting, and they saw how I dealt with my baby, then they took the reins off, and they let me be me, and gave me the trust to say, let her go on her own, let her go shopping, let her do this, let her do that. And that helped me to develop as a person, yeah. I've never really had that yet, so that was another good thing. So, any more questions? Yeah.
Lots of questions now. How did you find living with other families during the centre?
Oh, when I first got there was no other family there. I was there a while on my own, and when I got to the ending of my assessment there, then another family came in. But I'm an alright person. I can get on with anyone. So. Being on there on my own was good at first, because I had a lot of issues to deal with, so I didn't really needed anyone else yapping, like being nosy, if you want to say. But once a family came in at the ending of my session, yeah, I had already grown from there, so it was nice to have another mother there and chit-chatting, you know, watching the soaps and that, yeah. And you know, yeah.
When you talked about the assessment process, you referred to it as our assessment, and that made me wonder how much part of our process you felt, and whether you felt it was carried out constructively, and maybe, sorry to give you too many bits and pieces here, maybe your experiences in the past were not so positive, and perhaps you could tell us why.
Yeah, I have to think now, because I've got...
Not that I'm hammering on every word.
No.
It's just you used the word our assessment, and that's
yeah, because when I was in a mental hospital, it wasn't about the patient. It was about the staff dealing with the patient. So it for me, when I was in the mental hospital, it wasn't about me and how I felt. It was always about the assessment of the staff, what they wrote about you, what you did on the unit and stuff like that. But so that's why I probably referred it as your assessment, because when I first came to Phase, that's how I felt in the beginning. I felt that it was more, for me, I was feeling that it was more about social services and their opinion about me. But as time gone on, my views changed, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's the reason why I probably referred it as your assessment, because it's always been about the professionals. And for me,
Did you feel part of the process?
yeah, when at Phase, yeah, I did at Thai Connections, very much so, and that's why I said it changed my views and opinions on organisations and professionals, because before I got to Phase, I had a very negative view on how the system worked. Yeah. So yeah.
How long were you at the centre? And
12.
what was the hardest thing? And then when you left, what was your experience? Did you feel supported? Just what happened when you left?
Okay.
So what was the hardest thing? How long were you there?
I was there for 12 weeks. The hardest thing for me there was convincing people that they could trust me again. Just proving myself. That was hard, because as much as I had already been in rehab for 6 months, went through college, done my 12 steps, all of that before I got to Phase, it still felt like there was no trust for people in me. It was always, oh, here comes Almas, the druggie, or oh, here comes Almas, the mental health addict. Do you know what I mean? It was never just Almas, here comes Almas. So there was always a label over my head. Do you know what I mean? So that was the hardest thing, being there. When I left there was they referred me to a parenting course for 3 months, and they also had an outreach for 6 weeks for me. So they came to my home, helped me because I have got other kids, and I was going through a difficult period because my mum had them with my other kids. So yeah, they came to my house for 6 weeks. They assessed me on how I was with my other kids, helped me through it, put me on a parent course. So yeah, they had good emplacement for me, that I would say, than the other professionals I was dealing with. Yeah, they never just hang me out to dry, and that was one of the scariest things leaving there. Was, will I get support? Will I be just left with this 3-month-old baby with no friends? Because obviously the people I was hanging around with, I had to let go. So I had to basically isolate myself to show social services as well that I am ready to care for this baby. Yeah. So yeah, they've done really, really well on the aftercare. Yeah.
Do you think you could have done it having a home-based assessment, or do you think there was something about being away and being isolated from the old people in your life that was fundamental to the change?
Yeah, if I stayed at home, I probably would have failed. It was the same with my getting clean. I had done it in London a couple of times, went in residential rehab in London, and I failed. But when I was ready to go back in, I went to Plymouth and I stayed there for 6 months. So sometimes you have to come out of the environment, because as much as your head tells you you want to stay out of that situation, the environment can easily bring you back in. So yeah, for me, going away, and it was all the way in Harrow, so I was definitely away from London, I was definitely away from everybody, and I think yeah, it was good. It was a nice area, very friendly, calmer than London. So yeah, I feel that it helped big time to take you out the environment that you.
And did you go back then to your old home?
Yeah, yes. But like I said to this lady over here, I went back into my old home, back into the same environment, but I had things in place which Thai Connection put in, the aftercare, the parenting course. They didn't just bring me back in that environment and left me. Maybe if they did that, then maybe I wouldn't be here today, but they had things in place, and that's what also helped me to go back into my own home. Yeah.
Right. Did the centre use CCTV, and if so, how did you feel about that?
They never used CCTV in my room. It was only in the community areas. It wasn't in the bathrooms. Because obviously that's privacy in it. So. Because if it was in my room in the bathroom, then I would have something to definitely say about that. But no, it never made me feel uncomfortable because I never had nothing to hide. The only time something like that makes a person feel uncomfortable is when they got something to hide. I was very open when I got there. They knew exactly what I was about. So having the CCTV wasn't about, oh, they're spying on me. It was more for safety reasons. Do you know what I mean? Because where I said I suffer from high blood pressure, where I had preeclampsia before. So maybe for me that was like if I was in the front with the baby and I passed out, they could see it. They come down, they deal with it. So yeah, no, that's not an issue. No.
Can I just ask you, you've talked about feeling part of the assessment. Was there any time where anything was said or as part of the assessment that you didn't agree with, and how did you deal with that?
Oh yeah, there was a point where with my baby father, there was an issue around my baby father that everybody was concerned of my relationship with him. So everybody had their input. But at the time, I wasn't interested in hearing about him because my concern at that time was keeping my baby. My relationship with him was not important. But at the same time, I knew where everyone was coming from, concerning if I was going to relapse because I might go back out to him, or if our relationship is going to make me lose the baby, or if I go back to him and something happens and I lose the baby. I could understand all of that, but for me, I just didn't want to hear it anymore. I didn't want to hear, oh my God, are you going to Daniel? Oh my God, what's going to happen with Daniel? I just didn't want to hear about him. All I wanted to hear was what I'm doing with my baby, how I'm doing it, am I getting on well, am I progressing? That was my interest. I obviously knew when the time come I had to deal with him, which I have now. But yeah, that was the only thing that kind of got on my nerves. Was everyone going on about him? Yeah. So, yeah.
Did you feel cared for when you were there, almost?
Oh yeah, very much so. Very much so. As time went on, I felt part of a family. Do you know what I mean? Faye, some of her staff, her husband. I even met her kids. So after a while, yeah, it felt a part of a family. I felt very welcome. To be honest, I never had a lot of issues around feeling part of something, and I think that's what made it easier for me to do well.
The reason I'm asking you is because certainly not so much now, but in the past, and maybe around when you were being assessed, lots of family centres would say, we're here to assess, not to care for the person, the parent and the family. Whereas we have recently introduced something called care, support and guidance, which is about caring for the family, which is separate to doing the assessment. So I've just wondered if you felt that you had care, support and guidance when you were being assessed.
Oh yeah.
Do you think it was important that you had it?
Yeah, very much so. Like I said before, I've been in a lot of organisations and I've always felt like someone in a box just being looked at, do you know what I mean? Written about on paper. I've never felt that anybody professionally, took me seriously or even taught me as part of being someone, just not the addict or the crazy person, do you know what I mean? But when I came to Phase, they made me very welcome. They never made me feel like a label or a person on a piece of paper, which I felt when I first got there. So yeah, that helps very much so, because as a parent, whether you got mental health, addiction, the parent needs to feel like a person, just like anybody in this room. And when you don't feel like a person and you're labelled that's not going to help you progress. That's not going to make you think, especially if you've got mental health. I've got mental health. I'm schizo disorder. I've self-harm. And I've always been a label. So in my head, I feel, well, I'm not good enough. So I might as well continue what I'm doing. Because no one out there trusts me. No one out there believes in me. So why am I bothering? And that was my thing till I came here. And I felt like a person, not a label. And it made me help and grow as a person. And here I am today. You know, so yeah, that helps as well for any organisation to let the person grow as a person and don't judge them because of what's on a piece of paper. Give them the benefit. If they mess up, then you hound them. Yes, you give them all you got. But until that happens, I feel give them all what you can, the help you can give, because a person can't grow unless they got that. You know. It's like a child, it can't grow if it ain't nurtured. And the same with an adult. An adult can't progress as an adult if it's not nurtured. So yeah, I've been nurtured, and yeah, I'm growing positively as an adult now. Yeah, so yeah.
Obviously, you know, we're all here because we're talking about how we're going to do the inspections and what's the best way to do inspections, what are the best things that we need to be looking at. What do you think, as an expert in, you know, in terms of residential family centres, because we're not experts, because we haven't, you know, experienced it like you have, what do you think are some of the more important things that we need to be looking at?
It's, I think it's to need to more look, it's not about the place, because any place can be a residential. For me, it's more about looking at if they've got the right staff, if they've got the right persona, dealing with people with different problems, because you cannot, for instance, all right, I have more than one problem, so you can't deal with me for just one problem, you have to deal with me with all. Then you might have someone with one problem, you can't deal with that person the same as me. So for me, it's not about going in there thinking, oh, yeah, health and safety is important, but it's more about if the parent is comfortable, if the parent's getting the right, what's the word called? The right care, and the baby's getting the right care. That's what's important, because for me, being in the unit, I didn't care about what, if they had health and safety, or if you came there to see if the windows had locks on it. I'd rather you come to see how I'm doing. Am I comfortable? Am I being treated right? Because in a lot of these places, the parents don't get the full care for them to progress. And if you don't get the full care, in my eyes, you're not going to succeed. You have to get, and that's what's important for me as a parent, being in a place like that, for somebody to come and see, is my baby all right and healthy and safe? If the parents being treated right? Is the staff around them doing the work they're supposed to be doing? Because you don't always get that in places like that. So yeah.
Alma,
Yes.
I was wondering if you met any inspectors while you were there in your 12 weeks. Probably unlikely, because we only come, you know, every so
Yeah.
often. Did you meet an inspector?
No.
Because one of the things I'm concerned about is, obviously, as you've just said, you were going through an awful lot at that time, and it's a really important 12 weeks of your life.
Yeah.
And I think we're all aware as inspectors about how intrusive it can be as a
Yes.
stranger we arrive,
Yes.
and we want to find out as much as possible.
Yes.
And it's knowing what kind of questions we should be asking to find
Yes.
out how well the centre is actually helping
Yes.
parents.
Yes.
But how should we go about it? Should we be speaking to people on an individual basis, in
Yeah,
groups? How do you think you would have felt if we turned up, how we should have approached you to get the best information we could about the centre,
Yeah,
but
yes.
without impacting on your privacy and
Yes, yes.
your feelings?
Yeah. Well, for me, if I had an inspector come there, I can give you examples. Like if I had an inspector come there, where if I was at the unit and they just came in my room and started inspecting the windows and the fire extinguishers, and I'm there feeding the baby, and they're like, oh, okay, sorry, everything, and there's no interaction with me, then yeah, I'm going to feel, what the hell is this person doing now? I mean, this is my room, this is my privacy. Or if they came and they just spoke to the staff, and they didn't bother speaking to me, then I'd think, well, there's two sides of the coin. It's not, and in my experience, a lot of professionals don't always tell the truth. Yeah, there might be professionals, whatever, degrees or whatever, but they don't always tell the truth, especially in an isolated situation like that, if certain things is happening. In my experience, I was lucky. I went to a nice, good unit. So for me, if an inspector comes and speak to the staff and then asks me, is it okay, treat me like a person. Don't treat me like, oh yeah, she's under social services or whatever, her needs are like. I'm a person that day, I have feelings, so come and say, oh, is it okay if we have a little chat with you? Is it okay if we come in your room? Then I feel, well, he's treating me like a person. And I want more to say, okay, no problem, and invite you in. Sit down, ask me questions. How am I feeling in the unit? How am I being treated? What care am I getting? Because if you don't ask the patient, you're not going to know. And so, do you know what I mean? And for me, that would help, I feel, for a lot of parents who are in a situation like that because their views is important as well, very much so. So, yeah.
Hi, you've described a very positive, very inclusive place that you went to, which is great. It's really, really great to hear. I suppose one of my questions for you would be, if along the way you did have any negative experiences, or if you can think you didn't, if you can try and imagine if you did, was the centre good at giving you information about how to report any problems that you might have experienced, either within the centre or indeed how to get that message outside? Because you've described other experiences that you've had that have been far from ideal, where you felt very isolated and done to. How did the centre give you that kind of information if you weren't happy or were scared or worried or wanted to complain, or how would you have done that?
Yeah, when I first got there, they made sure that they gave me leaflets on the place, and they even verbally said that if I have any problems, I can come and talk to any staff. If I have any concerns about the staff, I can come and talk to the manager. So I knew straight away when I got there that I could have my views said if I was not happy in there. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't
you come across a very strong person that would do that.
Oh yeah, because like I said, do you know what I mean? Unless you say something, you can't change nothing. And a lot of my childhood, I've kept a lot of secrets, and that's why now, as an adult, I don't keep secrets anymore. And if I see I have a problem, I'm gonna say. So don't get me wrong, it wasn't all, you know what I mean? I never went in there and it was just all like flowers and whatever, roses. There was times where I thought, oh my God, I can't take it. Do you know what I mean? Where I had some stars, maybe they sound very patronising, talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old, and that can be very annoying as well. Do you know what I mean? And I will talk to another staff about it. So I know that. Because it was laid out to me when I got there, so I had no issues around that.
Did you worry that might impact on your assessment then, that if you spoke out and expressed some concerns? You think about that as well, because you do worry that because a lot of times I was told that I shouldn't get angry, because I get very emotional when I've been put in a place like that, especially around my kids. I get very emotional, get very angry, because I feel that I haven't been dealt with good along the line somewhere. For example, like my second child, he was taken into care straight from the hospital. They never put me in a mother and baby unit, they put me on a day unit where I go every day, see him for a few hours, and I felt that wasn't just. And after that assessment, they took him and they was going to adopt him. And I got angry, yes. And because I felt they never gave me the benefit of that, they never gave me a chance to prove myself.
So yeah, I've had both sides of the coin. I've had a successful with my daughter, and I have not so successful with my sons. So, you know what I mean? It's just where you end up in your life, you know what I mean? And I just happened to end up at Thai Connections. I could have ended up anywhere, but I ended up there, and I done well, and I'm grateful that I did, because I'm here today with you lot. And I never thought this would ever happen. Yeah.
Almas, I really, that has been just fantastic. I would like to thank you very much. It's been brilliant to hear from you. We may have a few more questions. Do you want to ask one or two more questions? I don't want to keep her here all day. But we can also invite you to come and have some lunch with us, and we can talk a bit more with people.
Yeah, I don't
okay?
mind. Yeah, that'd be fine.
Do you want to ask something else before we finish?
Yes, it's just for you to describe, because I came across you when I registered their other centre and
Yes.
had parents champion. Just if you can tell us a bit about your work with the organisation in developing the organisation.
That would be good.
Yeah.
When you came back, when the other clients were there, I called my parent champion in. We had a young, it's a small unit tied to the one that Almas was at, so it's two families at any one time. And we had a young 16-year-old, and then we had a mature mum, similar sort of circumstances with Almas. Complete opposite to where you might think the issues of the cohabiting would have come with a 16-year-old and then a sort of 30-odd-year-old. But yeah, so I called the cavalry in and asked Almas to come back and spend some time with them. You'd met because the other mum was there when you were leaving, so you knew her, and then it was the young mum that you hadn't met. And all I can say, it was a very successful evening. And you brought all the children, didn't you?
Yeah,
all your children to that. So there was lots of kids and lots of parents.
See, in a situation like that, all I can tell is from my experience. But the only thing I can't do is it's up to them. The same way it was up to me. It was either I did or I didn't. I came back, I shared my experience, I showed them that if you do this, you do that, it can be successful. If you put the trust in the staff, you open up, because that's what I did. Throw yourself in the counselling, the meetings, wherever you go, wherever they send you, just do it. Do you know what I mean? You can keep your child. But like I said, you know what I mean, you can't take the donkey to the water and make him drink it. I'm just there to offer my support, my advice. Whatever they do with it, I don't know. So yeah, but if somebody comes back and says from what I've told them, and they've taken a little bit from what I've said, and it's helped them, then that makes me a happy person, because at the end of the day, you know what I mean, I've been through a lot, I've been through bad and good, but one thing I do know today is if I can help others to keep their children like I've got mine now, then I'll help, yeah.
Thank you so much, Almas. It's been really lovely listening to you. Very, very helpful.
Thank you.
And I think it will really, do you agree it will really help us in our work going forward? So you've talked to people here today.
Yes.
But what you've told us now will have an impact on family centres throughout the country.
Okay.
Okay? So you have done a fantastic piece of work for us today, and we'd like to thank you very much. And
Thank you. Thank you.